All right. I believe we are live. I hope everybody's doing well. No, it's Sour Shea Burger. It is not going to be just chatting. Well, I mean, it is kind of just chatting, but I'm going to be chatting about the battle on video here. Give a few minutes for everybody to get going. And as always, when I do these specific focus videos like this, where we're talking about a particular topic, I'm going to ask everybody to keep their comments and questions to the topic. If you ask questions about other things, I'll just very politely ignore those. And it's also important to note that at times I'll get talking and I won't be constantly looking at the chat. So there's a decent chance I may not see everything that you say. So be patient with me while I do that. Extreme Wasabi, you're right down the road from me. I only live about an hour from Steubenville. Hello in Scotland, Adam. What part of Scotland are you in? Jack, that would be very cool. Okay, so for... Okay, Bjorn, what's the mistake you need to correct from yesterday? Jack, you're right down the road from me too, about 45 minutes from Akron. If you're talking about the guns from Buford's men, yes, I was confusing. It was actually Custer's brigade that had a couple of regiments that were using repeating rifles, sharps. Or no, not Sharps, but Spencers. It was Buford's men had Sharps guns. So that's probably what you're talking about, but maybe there's something else. Lost Wages, Nevada. I've never heard it called that. That's cool. Caden, very cool, an 1812 reactor. Fort Wayne, Indiana is a good place to do that. Germany, very cool. Yeah, Bjorn, I know the 24th Michigan saw a little bit of action at Fredericksburg. They had 7 men killed. I wasn't implying they hadn't been at other battles. What I was saying was that Gettysburg was their first real combat. The action they saw at Fredericksburg was primarily against some artillery. They weren't on the line facing infantry, fighting in a pitched battle. Gettysburg was the first time they really did that. Poland, Ohio, Gavin. Right down the road from me. That's like 20 minutes from me. So yeah, I think 24th Michigan had 7 killed at Fredericksburg, and it was mostly from artillery. Yeah, they had been in the army for a while, so you were hoping I'd be in an Amish-style shirt? Nope, I'm wearing some Vlogging Through History merch again today. So the primary thing I'm going to be using to talk about July 2nd today is this really fantastic Civil War Animated Battles.com. They have this map, and actually he emailed me after the stream yesterday to let me know that the July 1st version of this is almost done. So if I'd have waited a few weeks, we probably would have had it for yesterday's stream. But this is a great resource, and it's $10 for a year's access. You get like there's a trial period where you can try it out for free and stuff, but I just paid yesterday. Dan Holbrook. Hey, Dan, listen. My great-grandmother was a Holbrook, so we're probably related somehow. All my Holbrooks were from Kentucky originally, but we do get to talk about Chamberlain's charge today, yes. But more importantly, we get to talk about a more important charge than that one, which is the 1st Minnesota. So, oh yeah, Rufus Dawes, yeah. Interesting. You're right. I have read a little bit of his stuff. My favorite book on the topic of Gettysburg, the Second Day, is a book called Gettysburg, the Second Day by Harry Fance. It's fantastic. I mean, you're talking 500 pages of detail on one day of the American Civil War. It's really, really good. And honestly, July 2nd is my favorite day of the battle to talk about. Because I think it's underrated in terms of what happened there. And honestly, I think Lee's decision to attack on July 2nd is every bit as disastrous as his decision to attack on July 3rd. And I don't think it gets talked about nearly enough. Christian, yeah. I'm going to be a part of a podcast. They're going to interview me over 1 or 2 episodes. And my family, we're going on vacation next week. And so it's going to happen after that. So probably sometime middle of July. So Phil, we can probably talk about that retreat tomorrow when we talk about July 3rd. Maryland versus Maryland on Culp's Hill. Yes. All right. So this is what things look like at 4 a.m. on day 2 of the Battle of Gettysburg, July 2nd. This is when the weather starts to get hot. It was about 75 degrees and a nice breeze on July 1st. And remember, these guys are wearing wool uniforms and they've marched a lot. Some of these guys have been marching all night without sleep. It gets super hot on July 2nd and July 3rd. What's the podcast called? I'll have to check because I don't remember off the top of my head. But this is where things are. And what's cool about this, what's very interesting I find about this, is how close the lines were at the start of the day. And you'll see as we move along a little bit that the skirmish lines between the two sides get really, really super close. You can see there's a lot of Ohio regiments up here on Cemetery Hill. And you can see this is overlaid over a modern day version of the map. So right here is the Soldiers' National Cemetery. So this is the area where all of the soldiers who died during the Battle of Gettysburg are buried today, all the Union soldiers. This is the civilian cemetery over here, which existed during the battle. And who's in overall command at this point? Meade. Meade is on the scene. Meade arrives right around midnight, July 1st into July 2nd. So July 2nd, Meade's there. His headquarters is set up back here. Actually, it's back down this way a little bit. My wife just called me and sent me a voicemail, so I'm going to check and see what it is to make sure it's nothing important. She probably forgot that I was streaming. It prints out the voicemail for me, so no, she didn't say anything. Okay. So your Meade's headquarters is set up back here. Not too far from where the visitor center is now. That's the modern visitor center that was just built maybe 10 years ago. And so you can see early on July 2nd, really the Union does not have a lot of men in line of battle in the positions that they would take up eventually. Really the only troops on Culp's Hill at this point are the Iron Brigade, which has just been completely decimated. You can see here the 7th Indiana. Is that right? Oh, 7th Indiana's not part of the Iron Brigade, are they? Oh, that's Cutler's Brigade. Okay. So they're there to kind of bolster the numbers because the Iron Brigade was just decimated. 6th Wisconsin's got 200 men left out of 344. 2nd Wisconsin, let's take a look. They've only got 79 men left out of 302 originally. The 7th Wisconsin has 196 men left. The 19th Indiana has 108 men left, and the 24th Michigan, out of 500 they brought into the battle, has 143 left. So as time goes on, you're going to start to see, I'm going to start animating this, and you can start to see the movement as we get in. Nothing's really happening at 4 o'clock in the morning. You've got some 12th Corps units way down here, way outside, and they're kind of guarding the Union supply line because the Union supply line's coming up this road right here. The Confederates have moved in. 2nd Corps is here, 3rd Corps is here, and Longstreet's 1st Corps is going to start to arrive, and they're going to start to fill in on this side. And this is where they're going to attack eventually. So we'll advance things up to about 6 in the morning to kind of see how things have changed. Let me catch up on the chat here a little bit. Did the 11th and 1st Corps merge? No. They stayed separate units. How many soldiers fought at the Battle of Gettysburg? About 95,000 on the Union side, about 70 to 75,000 on the Confederate side. Hard to get solid numbers. Oh yeah, first Minnesota's coming, Zachary. Don't you worry. If Chamberlain never charged, no, I think the Chamberlain thing, as much as I love Chamberlain and it's a great moment, and I'm going to be visiting his house next week, I think that's overblown just a little bit. I think what the first Minnesota did was much, much more important to the outcome of the battle. Camp Hill, PA, that's not far from Gettysburg. My favorite day of the battle is July 2nd. I think it was, it has the best stories. I think it was the one where things could have gone either way the most. The units are hard to see. I'm going to zoom in when we start talking about some specific things. But you can see here, here's Buford's cavalry. They're way out here. And that's one of the things that people don't know about this battle, is that before things kick off on July 2nd, the Union occupies a lot of this ground that will eventually be held by the Confederates later in the day. So you've got Gamble and Devon's brigades out here. Now you can start to see the 3rd Corps is starting to move into position, but they haven't deployed yet down along here. The 2nd Corps is going to eventually move in up here, but they're also not here yet. For the most part, you can see some of the units. Here's the 11th Corps still sitting up here. You can see a lot more units now. So when people talk about the opportunity the Confederates had to take Culp's Hill, look that even at 5:30, there's hardly anybody there. The only brigade that's there is a completely wrecked Iron Brigade. And so even then, there's time that they could have been moving in on Culp's Hill. And you've got Johnson's division up here way, way back. And there's the Maryland unit right there that we were talking about a little while ago. And they just don't press things. The 7th Indiana's got some skirmishers out here, but there's nobody on Culp's Hill. But by 7 o'clock, that changes dramatically. And now you can start to see the men that have moved in on Culp's Hill. Yes, Bjorn is right when he says, in part because of Oliver Howard blaming Doubleday and the 1st Corps for what happened on July 1st, Meade replaces Doubleday with John Newton in command of the 1st Corps, which by this point the 1st Corps is little more than a really big division. This is the day where Richard Nixon's great-grandfather is mortally wounded, and that'll happen up here on Cemetery Hill, I believe late in the day. He was with the 73rd Ohio right here. And he's mortally wounded on Culp's Hill. That's George Nixon. That's President Nixon's great-grandfather. Yes, I believe Stonewall Jackson would have helped Lee at Gettysburg, but yeah, we'll talk about the 1st Minnesota when we get into there. Get into that. So let's move in now a little further into the day. Nothing really happens for the most part at Gettysburg on July 2nd until the late afternoon. Nothing major, anyway. So here's what things look like now at 9 a.m. And so you can see, and this is what I was talking about how close the skirmish lines are early in the day. So take a look here, and I don't know, I don't see a scale marker here. But, I mean, if you look at the size of these houses, we're talking 3-4 blocks away. So they're not very far apart. The skirmishers of the 136th New York are right here. And you can see the skirmishers, 18th North Carolina. These are the guys that mortally wounded Stonewall Jackson a couple months earlier. You can see how close they are. So now you're starting to see the 2nd Corps by 9 o'clock. The 2nd Corps has moved into the center where they will hold for the rest of the battle. That's Gibbon and Hayes. Those are 2nd Corps units. Caldwell is right here. Here's Humphreys and Birney, which are 3rd Corps under Sickles. And they're still sitting in, starting to deploy. You can start to see now that they're in line of battle. And what I love about this app is how you can see so much. You can see how many men they start the battle with and how many they've currently got. So here's the 1st Massachusetts. They're holding 200 feet of the battle. And when you visit the Gettysburg battlefield, and I'm planning a visit there later this year, sometime maybe in the fall, and I'm going to organize a tour group. So I'm going to try and get as many of you guys who are able to come join me, and we're going to tour the battlefield, together. This is animated. There wasn't a West Virginia division at Gettysburg, but I think there may have been a few West Virginia units. Space Wolf, if I do visit Germany, Aachen's the first place I plan to go. So, Dan Headache Sickles. Lauren, yeah, we'll talk about the lady who was shot. Her name was Jenny Wade. So, yeah, so it's cool. One of the things that's cool about Gettysburg is when you visit the battlefield, they have... most of the monuments at the Gettysburg battlefield were placed by men in those units who served there. They would have regular reunions there, and they actually put markers, at least on the Union side, showing the left and right flanks of the various units. So you can go there and actually see, here's the left flank of the 20th Maine, here's the right flank of the 20th Maine. You can visualize exactly where their lines were during the battle. So that's really cool. So let's go ahead and advance, because there's not a lot that happens early in the day. So we're going to start animating a little bit of this, and you can see the movement. So you can see here's some Union units moving into position now. They're getting into line of battle. And this animates in 5-minute stretches. So it's really, really cool. And the guy who did this, TVM Enterprises, they've done so much great work to make this happen, to let you really visualize minute by minute what's happening. So now, this is something that's interesting, because when you think about Longstreet's attack, so let me back up for a second, because I want to talk about what Lee's plan is. So at this point, Longstreet still has not arrived. He's starting to. Okay, so here's McLaws' division back here. This is one of the divisions under Longstreet. McLaws, Hood, and then Pickett. But Pickett won't arrive until after the battle's over on July 2nd. Siddharth Jain, you're talking about Pickett's charge. We'll talk about that tomorrow when we talk about July 3rd. Jaden, I appreciate that. Thank you. So Lee's plan is this. He wants to send kind of an attack on Culp's Hill on the right, but really more of a demonstration to basically keep the Union honest, because you can see how the Union has this fishhook line that they will build that'll go all the way down to here. And what's brilliant about this defensive position, not only is it anchored on high ground everywhere, but they're so close to each other. Look at the distance between the right flank and the left flank of the Union, how close they are. Look at the distance between the right flank over here and the left flank of the Confederates, and how much ground they have to cover. It's like 6-7 times as far. So you can very quickly move reinforcements as needed from one side to the other. And so Lee's plan is you attack the Union here, keep them from being able to pull troops off the line on the right to reinforce the left where your main attack is going to come. And as I said earlier, I believe that Lee's attack on the Union left was every bit as ill-advised. I'm holding back from saying stupid, because that's what it really was, as July 3rd was. Because if you go to Gettysburg and you look at the ground here, there's a famous quote that I've talked about that in the movie Gettysburg that Hood says after he's wounded, when he says, "Worst ground I ever saw." And you can see it. Look at all the rocks. Look at the boulders everywhere. It's just brutal ground to try and march an army over. And that's what they were attacking over. And they're attacking uphill almost this entire time. It was just not a good idea at all. Michael Corver, you live in Chambersburg, named after my sixth great-grandfather. My ancestor, my great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather founded Chambersburg. My great-grandma was a Chambers. Steve, your wife's ancestor was Joseph Kershaw? Very cool. Psychedelic Joey, what part of Northeast Ohio? The Union wasn't lucky. They earned it. They chose ground wisely, and Lee did not wisely attack. Opinion of Sickles' move off the height. We're going to talk about that. So Lee's plan then is for Longstreet to attack with his two divisions he has, which are Hood. It's going to be Hood on the right and McLaws on the left. But Longstreet is strongly against this attack. And so he takes his good old sweet time in moving into position to get ready to attack, trying to convince Lee that it's a bad idea and that they should disengage and move south to a defensive position between the Union Army and Washington, D.C. So I think Lee should have pulled out of Gettysburg and not attacked there at all. So you can see here, one of the things that, until I really kind of visualized this, that I hadn't really understood, was how early in the day Sickles makes his move. So Dan Sickles, out of all the corps commanders in the Army of the Potomac, Dan Sickles is one of the few men during the entire war who rises to the level of corps command who is not a professional soldier. He was a congressman before the war, and we've talked about Sickles before. I'm not going to get into all his story again. But he raises a brigade of soldiers, gets initially promoted to colonel, and then eventually rises through the ranks. At the Battle of Chancellorsville, he was in a position where the enemy secured high ground in front of him and used that to set their artillery and fire down on his men. And so he vowed not to let that happen again. And so when Meade orders him into position on the left of the 2nd Corps is here, he orders Sickles into position along Cemetery Ridge right here. Sickles sits there, and if you go to Cemetery Ridge today, you'll notice that the area where the peach orchard is, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see that. I want to turn on the locations. So here's the peach orchard. This ground up here is quite a bit higher in elevation than Cemetery Ridge is. And so Sickles sees this, and he's like, I ain't letting this happen again. I'm not letting the Confederates get the high ground right in front of me. And so he moves forward with his corps against direct orders. And you can see how early in the day this actually happens. So he's there right now. But look, let's get to 10 o'clock now. And by 10 o'clock, he's already moved Graham's brigade. He's moved Birney's division forward. Here's de Trobriand. Here's Ward's brigade. Here's Graham's brigade. They're already starting to move toward that position. They're in line of battle here. These are some batteries. Caliph's batteries all the way out here. You've got skirmishers all the way out here. Skirmishers here. Buford's division is still way out here. And at this point, honestly, if you look at it this way, it's not a bad decision by Sickles, because you've still got the 2nd Corps here, and now his line kind of slopes this way and anchors with the cavalry on his left. And there are no Confederates out here. And so the bottom line is Sickles disobeyed orders. He was ordered to put his men in a certain position. He disobeyed that order. But looking at it from here, it does not look like that bad of a decision at the moment. So that's where the peach orchard is right there. And so here's a view. Here's my video. If you want to watch later, I'll have to put the link in the description. I did about a 45-minute video retracing the steps of Longstreet's July 2nd attack. And this is the view that Longstreet's men would have had looking forward toward that. I'll turn off the sound, and I'll kind of rewind this a little bit. So this is the plan for Longstreet's attack right here. Is to attack through there. But what he does not expect is where Sickles' men end up being. They end up being much more forward than he expected. But this is a view from a tower on where Longstreet's position would have been. So this is Cemetery Ridge right here. Here's the peach orchard right here. And then down here a little further is going to be, you'll actually see Little Round Top really clearly. It was kind of windy that day. That's why my phone's rocking a little bit. So here's Little Round Top right there. And you can see how it really just does dominate everything that you can see. The wheat fields down in here. Peach orchards right up here. And this ground is all significantly higher than what Sickles had. But yeah, he's got the artillery up on the high ground. Devil's Den is going to be down here to the south. So you've got Peach Orchard here. Trossel Farm right here, which is where Sickles will end up being wounded. Here's the Rose Woods. Here's Little Round Top. And Devil's Den is right here. So Devil's Den is due west of Little Round Top. And so Hood's men are going to attack through here. So let's go ahead and skip ahead and start talking about this attack. So here it is by 1:30. Here's the situation now at 1:30 in the afternoon. You're still not seeing Longstreet's men, okay? Anderson, this is 3rd Corps here, is starting to move into position right here. But Longstreet's just now starting to move. You can see Alexander's artillery right here, but there's really no infantry in the area. McLaws is starting to move out. In fact, we'll animate this to let you see what's happening. McLaws is starting to move out into position around 1:30. And this attack was supposed to have commenced long before. Hood's going to be in there behind him. So McLaws is going to move in right next to Anderson here. And then Hood's going to be down here a little further. So let's go ahead and then move ahead to 2 o'clock. And you can still see McLaws is just now moving into position. But again, look at the skirmishers for the Union. They've got a skirmish line all the way out here in front of Devil's Den, in front of Little Round Top. Little Round Top was not the completely undefended place that people think of it being. There were a lot of Union troops between the Confederates and Little Round Top at that point. Well, it's hard to say as far as Sickles goes. It was the wrong decision from the standpoint that he disobeyed direct orders. Nick, what part of Northeast Ohio are you in? But I understand why Sickles did it, and had he been given latitude to make that decision for himself, I would defend that position. And Bjorn's right. It wasn't that it was wrong. It was just he couldn't be supported, and that was the problem. He created a nightmare scenario for the other corps around him. Sickles did. America would have been much better off if Johnson never took office, but we're not talking about that today. All right, so let's animate this a little bit. And you're going to see, here's McLaws starting to move into position. And we'll zoom in a little bit so we can see this a little better. These are actually batteries that are continuing to move. You can see how much artillery the Confederates are starting to move in. So let's skip ahead now to about 3 o'clock. So, wow, that happened pretty fast. So let me back up a little bit. So 2:15, you see the batteries. So now you're starting to see McLaws moving. Not quite yet. Here we go. Kershaw is going to be first. So 2:35, Kershaw's brigade's starting to move in. It's really fun to watch like this. These are South Carolinians. 2nd South Carolina right there. Richard Kirkland, who we know as the Angel of Marie's Heights. He's in the 2nd South Carolina. And amazing thing for some of these men, the 2 bloodiest battles of the Civil War were Gettysburg and Chickamauga. And Hood's division was heavily engaged in both. So was McLaws' division. I have, Tyler, been to Hollywood Cemetery. He created the largest speed bump in history. That's a good way to look at it. Some will argue that what Sickles did actually broke up Longstreet's attack before it really had a chance to form. I don't know how I feel about that. So Kershaw moves up and then he kind of backs up a little bit behind the woods. And you can see again how close the Union skirmish lines are. I mean, they're really, really close to where the Confederates are moving into position. So it's not like they would have been taken by surprise by the Confederate attack, because they would have seen this movement happening. So now let's move ahead to about 3:30. So now you can see Hood's division has moved into position. And you can see here, Hood's going to start arguing over and over again that they need to move further around to the right and go around Little Round Top and Big Round Top, rather than attack through this miserable ground that you see here with the rocks. The Union had to have seen these movements. There's no way they didn't. CivilWarAnimatedBattles.com is the website. You can register for a free trial and play around with this yourself. And they emailed me yesterday that they're very soon going to have the July 1st animated map done as well. So 3:30, the attack is not ready, but they're going to get going before too long. Again, contrary to popular belief, they did not move into position and then sit there for hours and hours and hours. They attacked not too long after they moved into position. So you can see now the line has extended. So Law is going to be right here, Evander Law. And one of the mistakes that happens during this battle is that Evander Law is Hood's second in command. And Hood is going to be way up here near the Bushman farm. That's where he'll end up being wounded. Law is way out here on the end of the line. And so when Hood is wounded and Law takes command of the division, he doesn't know right away he's taking command of the division. And so there's really no command and control happening with Hood's division for a little while there. And so now he's going to start sending skirmishers forward. And you can still see here that at this point, Little Round Top is undefended. And let me find for you where... let's see where the 20th Maine is at this point, since we know we're going to talk about that. Here's the 20th Maine. Oh, they were right in front of me. So Strong Vincent, whose brigade will defend Little Round Top, is right here. He's actually north of Little Round Top, and they're sitting right behind the 3rd Corps. And had they not gone to defend Little Round Top, they may have found themselves on the brunt of the Confederate advance when they broke through the 3rd Corps line. But they're going to end up moving south to defend Little Round Top here before too long. Hey, Little Ryan, I'm doing well. Hope you are as well. Opinion on Hood. Hood was a good division commander, very good. But you have to remember, he loses the use of his arm at the Battle of Gettysburg. 2 months later, he loses a leg at Chickamauga. He also, I believe, lost a few children during the war, and all of that had to have had an impact on his psyche. So now you can see at 4 o'clock, the movement starts forward. The skirmish lines are going to start dropping back in the face of this pressure. And now, DC Bueno, thank you, appreciate that. Glad you could stop by and say hi. Now you can see they're moving into position. An interesting thing here is that the 20th Maine is at the end of the line, but they're the ones that end up on the far side of the line for Little Round Top, defending that southern part of the position. So let's go ahead and animate 5 more minutes. And so you're going to see here that the first real contact that's going to happen is Robertson's 3rd Arkansas and the 1st Texas. They're attacking here. And let's meanwhile look over here. And the feint attack that's supposed to be happening on Culp's Hill has not yet commenced. That's not happening at the moment. But right here is kind of the apex of the line. There's Graham's brigade here. And I had an uncle who was in the 57th Pennsylvania who has 207 men to start. They'll end up with 92 men left by the end of the day. Jaden, I'm not talking about my opinion on William Seward today. We're talking about Gettysburg. Slocum doesn't send help to Sickles because Slocum's got his own problems that he's going to have to deal with over on Culp's Hill. But Hancock will, as commander in this area here, will end up calling for reinforcements. But it's really the 5th Corps under Sykes that is going to back things up over here. And the 20th Maine is part of the 5th Corps, which is part of Barnes's division. Do I get copyright strikes for the reaction videos? No, if I did, I wouldn't have a channel because you get 3 copyright strikes and you're done. Yes, Meade was a very good general. Remember, he's only been in command of the Army for 4 days at this point, on July 2nd. He takes command on June 28th. Because Hooker wasn't fired. Hooker resigned as commander of the Army of the Potomac. He resigns, and then Meade is ordered to take command on June 28th. Am I going to do a video? But I'm not really into boxing all that much, so probably not. So you can see there's some skirmishers, some sharpshooters here. holding the line. But for the most part, I mean, if you're strong Vincent's brigade, you can't feel too good about the fact that you've got 2 full brigades that are coming your direction, though he wouldn't have known that at this point. So Robertson, you can see how far out in front he is as he's hitting Ward's brigade right here. Robertson's 2 brigades here are way out in front of Benning and Robertson, and the rest of Robertson's men here. And there's kind of this crossover and mix-up that's happening with Robertson's brigade as they kind of get tangled up in these waterways and these rocks and everything. Hood's back here around the Bushman farm, and that's where he's going to get wounded. I'm trying to think of about what time that was that Hood was wounded. Let me see if I can find that out real quick. Yeah, I can't seem to find it. Yeah, Joe Hooker did really well for himself out in the West. No, Meade was never fired. Soviet Union. Meade commanded the Army of the Potomac for the rest of the war. Robertson tried to flank Vincent, but the 20th Maine sends out a company of skirmishers to kind of cover that part of the line. So let's animate another 5 minutes here. Now you can see the whole attack. Anderson's division or Anderson's brigade. I'm confusing him with Anderson's division up here. It's starting to move forward. Now Robertson's got more men on the line. The 15th Alabama, 47th Alabama are going to push up and over Big Round Top, as it's called. No, I do not think the Civil War could have been involved. John Burns, not to my knowledge, he fought on day 1 and was wounded. Hancock's Corps is holding the center of the line. So they're up here. This is also Brooke, Kelly, Cross, and Zook are brigades in Hancock's Corps that are going to go in. Kelly is the Irish Brigade. They're going to go in as a support when the 3rd Corps crumbles, when that part of the attack goes off. You can see the attack starts with Hood on the right, and then McLaws is going to move in shortly after. Once they have started their attack, McLaws will start his attack on the Peach Orchard. So now they're starting to move in. You can see the 20th Maine right here. They've got 386 men. They're holding 246 feet of the line. So they've got a lot of area to cover, a lot more than these other brigades have to cover. Nathan Hooker was not removed. He resigned as commander of the Army of the Potomac. I have not heard the Union Dixie song, no. Okay, so here comes the attack on Devil's Den now. And you can see by 440, the 44th Alabama's left and right segments are going to hit Devil's Den. The 4th Maine is down here in this area called the Valley of Death. And this is probably the worst ground of any part of the battlefield. In fact, I'll see if I can show it to you. Show you what it looks like, because it's just atrocious ground. Let me see if I can find that spot. No, it's going to be back here further before I get up on top of Little Round Top. So this is the valley down here. Oh, there's a good shot of it here. So this is that area right there that I'm talking about, right in here. I'm standing up on Devil's Den looking in this direction in this shot here, up toward Big Round Top. And there's this creek in here and then just rocks everywhere. You can hardly take a step or two without twisting an ankle. It's that hard to walk on this ground down there. And this is what the Confederates are attacking through, is this area right in here. It's just absolutely brutal. These guys are going up through Devil's Kitchen, up and over Big Round Top. Snip's play is going well. Devil's Den was just these big boulders. Yeah, Valley of Death was absolutely brutal ground. Some of the worst ground I've ever seen on a Civil War battlefield anywhere. So at this point, you still don't quite have the attack commencing on the 20th Maine and these guys. Here's the 5th New Hampshire chilling back here. The 5th New Hampshire, who will be down to 99 men at the end of this battle, have the distinction of having lost more men than any Union regiment during the entire war, over the course of the war. I don't mean in a single battle, but the 5th New Hampshire lost more men throughout the war than any other Union regiment in the entire war. Antimatter, that's a fantastic question. That's why Hood was against this attack. That's why Longstreet was against this attack. It was a bad idea by Lee, and he really should not have made this attack at all. So that's kind of the situation. You see that McLaws hasn't quite launched his part of the attack yet. So let's back up a little bit so we can see what's happening. Anderson's pushing forward. Right now, it's really just Hood's division. McLaws has not even launched his attack yet. Yeah, absolutely, Meade could redeploy if he wanted to. So by 450, the lead elements now are going to start attacking the face of Little Round Top. And again, just stupidity to attack up this hill. But that's what they have to do. And here's what it would have looked like for these guys. And the Union regiments would have been maybe a third to a halfway down the side of the hill on what they call the military crest. And this is what they're attacking up. The 20th Maine is down here a little lower in elevation, but in the woods. And they're going to start turning now, these two Alabama brigade or regiments. And they're going to start turning and start attacking up toward the 20th Maine. And by this point, you can see the Union's starting to collapse. They've lost Devil's Den. That fight did not last very long. Sharpshooters were mostly used as skirmishers, and they were very effective at that. There was no chance for the Union to regroup and redeploy, at least not during this part. And you can see here what's happening now. So far, the 3rd Corps is holding okay, but that's only going to last until you have a 2nd Division start attacking. And once McLaws hits the rest of the 3rd Corps, things are going to fall apart very quickly. And so here's the wheat field. And so the Confederates going to initially attack from the south into the wheat field, but then they're also going to eventually attack here. And throughout the battle, you're going to have men pouring in from all sides into the wheat field, and it's going to become one of the bloodiest spots on the battlefield. Yes, the Smithsonian Battles map, I used some of the stuff that they feature yesterday. So now here comes Kershaw, and the skirmishers are going to start pulling back here. And you can see there's a gap in the line. There are no infantry right here. Really, 62nd PA and 4th Michigan should have probably been poured into this gap here, but they didn't. 20th Maine has still not engaged. They're going to be hearing firing over to their right going on, but they're not actually engaged quite yet. Did I fight at Gettysburg in Grand Tactician? I did. I haven't fought at Gettysburg in my newest campaign. Was Gettysburg Lee's first? It was his first real defeat, yeah. Major defeat, I would say. So at 5 o'clock, 5:05, we still are waiting to see. The attack on Culp's Hill has not happened, but you're starting to see skirmishers move forward. And let's back up a little bit, and we'll animate a little further, just to kind of see a bird's eye view of what's happening. So now you can see redeployment by the Union to cover that gap. And it's actually going to be the 3rd Maine, the 141st Pennsylvania, the 3rd Michigan. They're going to come down and try to plug that gap where Kershaw hits them. But they don't quite get there in time. Let me back up. So let's animate a little further now. So the initial attack by the 4th and 5th Texas is going to be thrown back by the 16th Michigan and the 44th New York. You've got this really big brigade here, 431 men in the 40th New York. You can see they're charging in line of battle. Where's Sykes and Slocum? Slocum commands the area around Culp's Hill. The 12th Corps is over here. And Sykes is in reserve with the 5th Corps. But 20th Maine this is 5th Corps, so these are Sykes' men here. So waiting for William Colville's Knights to save the day. It's coming. Yeah, the wheat field does not offer a strategic advantage. It just happened to be where it was that it becomes the center of so much of the fighting. So here now you can see that. Let me back up for a second. Because you can see the 20th Maine has sent out Company B as skirmishers, and Chamberlain will not hear anything from them, and so he assumes after multiple attacks that they've been wiped out by the Alabamians that have come through, but they're actually still out there. And they're helping to cover. Remember, he's the end of the line. He is the last Union regiment all the way out there, although the 5th New Hampshire is out here. So he's all by himself. And you can see here, this is kind of cool. You can see now, I think this is probably Weed's brigade moving in right here. And they're going to come up and that's Hazlett's battery there. And he'll be killed during the battle. And Weed's going to move into the right of Vincent's brigade to help hold Little Round Top. When do the winged hussars arrived? They do not. Sorry. So now Kershaw is hitting Schweitzer here. Schweitzer, that's also, I believe, I want to say Schweitzer's 5th Corps. It is. So these are 5th Corps units that have been sent by Meade. So what happened was Meade sends multiple messages to Sickles telling him to pull his men back. And then he finally rides out to meet Sickles face to face. And Meade has a temper, and he probably displayed it with Sickles. And Sickles offers to pull his men back. But by that point, Longstreet's attack has started, and it's too late. So then Meade has to start pouring reinforcements, 5th Corps reinforcements, and then later 2nd Corps reinforcements into the battle to help hold the line. Yes, Ozai, you're absolutely right. Flanking fire from Company B will be integral in helping the 20th Maine to hold the line. Because look at what they're facing. I mean, the 15th Alabama outnumbers them. And they're actually, at a few points, facing some of the men from the 47th Alabama as well. And what's cool here is you can actually see, right now, so far, Oates has taken about 13 casualties. 20th Maine's taken about 15. So it's pretty even at the moment. So you can see, this is cool, just watching Little Round Top. You can see the attack. So they pull back, they hit again, they pull back, they hit again. Everybody else here, de Trobriand, is falling back. Schweitzer's going to start falling back with his whole division. Graham is just going to get annihilated in the Peach Orchard. And now you're starting to see 2nd Corps units moving in to help out. This is the Irish Brigade right here, which only numbers maybe 500-600 men. Cross and Zook, I believe, will both be killed. I know they both died during the war. I don't remember if Cross dies during this battle or not. Zook, I know, does die during this battle. But still, they have not been hit in the Peach Orchard, and things have been going for a while in the wheat field at this point. Company B, let's take a look. They're not sharpshooters. There are some men from the 2nd U.S. sharpshooters in that area as well. But Company B's got 40 men right there, so you can see that. And you can see how the 15th Alabama now is extending their line, and they're trying to get around the 20th Maine. And that's when Joshua Chamberlain will extend his line and bend it backwards here. Again, trying to cover the flank. You can see that he bends back to kind of cover things as best he can, and he extends his line and spreads it out as the 15th Alabama is trying to do the same thing. So they're both extending those lines. Here comes the 140th New York, and this was also an important charge. that happens. They come up and over the hill just in time to slam into the flank of the Alabamians. 140th New York under Louis Ernst, they have 453 men. They'll end up losing about 130 of those during the battle. The website is civilwaranimatedbattles.com. So at this point, Devil's Den's been overrun. The Confederates hold this whole area right here. And so you can kind of see how Little Round Top's quite isolated. Weed's up here, except for the 140th New York, which I believe was part of his brigade that was sent down there to help out. Weed would end up being killed as well during the battle. Here's the Irish Brigade moving into position. Let's zoom out a little bit and watch this unfold a little bit. So here's the 2nd Corps. So now right in this area, you have elements of 3 different Union Corps. The 2nd Corps, the 5th Corps, and the 3rd Corps, all fighting. I thought Cross died on that day as well, and Zook was mortally wounded. I think Zook or Cross, one of them was the one that Hancock sees him riding into battle, and he tells him that it's the last time he'll go into battle without a star, because he's a colonel, and he's in command of a brigade, and he tells Hancock, "It's too late, General, this is my last battle." A lot of men had these kinds of premonitions. Can I see the map to the left of day 2, on the left side? You can see pretty much everything on the battlefield here. And they are, as I mentioned earlier, they're working on a day 1. It's going to be done in a couple of weeks, he said. So you'll be able to watch day 1 animated the same way. The 1st Minnesota charge is going to come later on, because that's going to go on up here further. And that's much later in the day. That's, I think, like 7 or 8 o'clock. At this point, we're nearing 45 minutes. Actually, well, it's longer than that. More like, how long has it been since this attack started? 4:30 is when the attack started. So this didn't all happen all that instantly. We're an hour and a half into the attack, and most of the 3rd Corps is still holding because they're just now starting to be hit. And it's Barksdale that comes in first with his Mississippians to hit the peach orchard. So let's watch that unfold a little bit. Yeah, so this is all Sickles' men. This is the 3rd Corps right here. His whole right flank, Sickles, has not yet really been engaged at this point. Howard was on July 1st. We talked about him yesterday. I'm trying to find, I don't see Willard yet, but Willard will be killed during this battle. So these are all 5th Corps units back here. There's 2nd Corps there. So now the Irish Brigade's pouring in right here, and they're going to take on Kershaw. You can now see what's happening at Little Round Top. Most of Evander Law's brigade at this point has been pretty well shattered. They're reorganizing. Actually, the 5th Texas hasn't taken many casualties, but a lot of these other units have taken significant casualties at this point. So let's move forward a little bit more now. You can see some of the 3rd Corps units that have been smashed in the wheat field are pulling back. And you can see how quickly Barksdale, I mean, this charge was very effective. This is 4 brigades by Barksdale charging into 7 or 8 brigades. And watch how quickly the Union line disintegrates when they get hit. It's almost instant. And behind them is Wofford's brigade. They're coming in with reinforcements. So yeah, at this point they're already starting to shatter. So this is about 15 minutes of fighting, and 73rd North Carolina's taken 50 casualties, or 73rd New York taken 50 casualties. The 68th PA's taken 118 casualties already. The 141st has lost half their men already. They'll end up with just 60 men left when the battle's over. 2nd New Hampshire has also lost nearly half their men, so they've just been shattered. I keep calling regiments brigades. Depends on what you're talking about. These are brigades. This is a brigade here. This is Barksdale's brigade with 4 regiments. So now you can see, and this is kind of interesting. Let's back up for a second, because you're going to see here that Zook and Brooke and Kelly, these are part of the 2nd Corps. They move in, and they kind of pass up Tilton and Schweitzer's men, and they kind of march through where the 3rd Corps has broken. And watch their counterattack. They actually push the Confederate line back and out of the wheat field. So a pretty good job by the 2nd Corps boys to push back against what's happening. But they're very quickly going to start taking a lot of casualties. And so this is 6:15. You can see at this point the Peach Orchard battle has pretty well been decided. Barksdale is going to get mortally wounded during this attack. And Sickles is going to lose his leg near the Trossel Farm, which is right over in this area right here. This is where he loses his leg. So Dan Sickles becomes the only man in American history to be both court-martialed and awarded a Medal of Honor for the same day of fighting. He was court-martialed not long after. His war was over at this point. He did continue to serve in the Army, including after the war. He had some commands after the war, but he never really held another combat command after this. And he fought pretty hard against Meade in his court-martial. So Brooke is exposed on his left flank. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, he is. And you can see the 148th PA here, which is also part of the 2nd Corps. You've got some units moving into position here. These are going to be U.S. regulars under Sykes. And they're probably the ones that are going to move down into that position in the Rose Woods. No, they're not. It's going to be... And this is part of the problem when you advance that far forward. You kind of get it ahead of your own line. But things are starting to fall apart further north at this point. And at this point now, you've also had Wilcox coming down. So let's back up a little bit and see what's happening further up on the line. Because you're going to have Wilcox's brigade attacking down right here. Is the water good? It's Walmart's finest. Yeah. Chris, I agree. I love this tool. I think TVM Enterprises did a great job in helping us to understand the battle in a powerful way, and I hope that this is something they'll do for other battles once they've completed Gettysburg. So Barksdale's broken through, but now he's going to start hitting the 2nd line. He's going to hit men like Brewster. Over here now, you can see that Weed is going to start. He's moving his brigade. Let's back up a little bit and see how that went down. Because Weed's initially up here, defending just outside of the wheat field. But he's going to start moving his brigade down to help out at Little Round Top. And by the time Weed's brigade gets there, the Confederates really just have no hope of taking Little Round Top. So Weed's going to move in on the right. Hazlitt will be killed. Weed will be killed there. The 20th Maine's still holding on. And we'll see, I think it's a little bit after 6 o'clock, we're going to see Chamberlain's charge happen. And you can see here, there's this little bit of men from the 15th Alabama, about 50 men that are going to sneak in behind. But then as the rest of the 15th Alabama fall back, they're going to find themselves isolated. So here comes Chamberlain's attack, right around 6 o'clock. So this is when he's going to wheel the left side of his line forward in a charge. And then he's going to move forward, and here's where the 20th Maine's Company B is going to move forward and help out with that. And by 6:10, that's about over. And they've broken what's left of the Confederate attack on that side. I don't think Meade would have been directly involved in ordering Kelly and Brooke to push. That would have been more at the division level. So that would have been up to their division commanders to make that happen. I think that's Caldwell's division. Interestingly, these are the same men that had to attack up Marie's Heights at Fredericksburg. Some of the same units. But they hold, you can see they're holding quite well at this point. They've pushed the Confederates out of the wheat field. At this point, a lot of the Confederate attack has collapsed on the right. Barksdale is kind of running out of steam here himself. You've got Wofford in behind him. Wilcox is going to come down right here. So let's zoom out a little bit and start to watch now what happens. Actually, I want to zoom out real high so we can really see things. Barksdale's pushing forward still right here. Now let's look over here. The attack has still not unfolded on the right. I don't think Chamberlain's charge failing would have changed the outcome a whole lot, honestly. There were enough other Union units in the area. You can see here by 6:30, about 20 minutes after Chamberlain's charge, you've got Fisher and McCandless have moved in, and they could have countered anything that, Robertson's and Law's brigades were pretty well shattered by that point. Even if they had started to roll up the Union line, the Union just would have counterattacked. Pablo Sanchez, thank you. I am going to do some videos on Reconstruction for sure. It's one of the most frustrating periods in American history, and it's something I definitely want to be able to talk about. Sedgwick's 6th Corps is not really involved in Gettysburg. They pretty much remain in reserve throughout. So, yeah, let me zoom back out. Now you can see the counterattack by the 2nd Corps is starting to collapse. They're starting to get overwhelmed because you can see here, let me back up a little bit, because Wofford is going to enter the attack. So this is a fresh Confederate brigade, these Georgians right here. And they're going to come in and they're going to hit Zook. And Zook at this point, some of his men haven't taken any casualties at all. But they're going to get hit by part of Kershaw's brigade. They're going to get nailed by Wofford. Tilton really should have had his men further up. I'm not sure why he didn't. But they had already been engaged at this point. Schweitzer's right here. But Brooke and Zook and Kelly are going to get overwhelmed right here. Who's my favorite president? Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt. The War of 1813? Yeah, I'll do some videos on the Revolution and the War of 1812. So Schweitzer moves in to try to slow things down, but the Confederates have really consolidated their attack now, and they're pushing forward. Brewster's going to get overwhelmed up here. And this is when you're going to start to see the Union center get threatened up here. Now you're going to see Wright and Posey. Posey's got Floridian troops, I believe. No, they're Mississippians. You're going to see these Georgians under Wright. This is where you're going to see the 1st Minnesota do their thing before too long. Bohemia, very cool. Don't worry, anything you missed, you can go back and rewatch from the beginning. So you can see Birney's 2nd Corps men are falling back. It's pretty bad at this point. They're falling back toward the Union center. The Union left is stable right here. This is Ayres. These are 5th Corps men. The line right here is quite stable. At this point, what they need... you can see the Union strategy here now is everybody's going to fall back to the original positions they were supposed to have been in the whole time, which is along Seminary Ridge right here, because you've got this high ground at Seminary Ridge anchored in the south. And so they've got a strong defensive position here. They've just got to anchor it right here as best they can. And now here's the 6th Corps. They've moved up and they're in reserve and they're available. Again, if the Confederates had overrun, they can probably move the 6th Corps in. So let's find where's the 1st Minnesota at this point. They've got to be right in this area. There they are, right there. So all of these units are going to break back. And here are 330 men, which they actually, I think, had 2 brigades detached. So they only had more like 280 some men. So you can see all these brigades breaking. It's almost 7 o'clock at this point. So here's one of the 1st Minnesota's companies, which is being used for skirmishers down here. So let's go back up and take a look at them. They're right here. William Colville and Calvin Coolidge. I've mentioned this before. Calvin Coolidge, visiting the battle years later when he was president, is talking about the 1st Minnesota, and he says that these men are rightly deserving of the title Saviors of America for what they're about to do here. So 7 o'clock comes along. All of these other units have broken. You've got this hole. Once the 42nd New York and the 19th Massachusetts break, you're going to have this hole in the line right here. And let's zoom out to give you a better understanding of what's happening. Because here's the Union center. You've got half the army up here and half the army down here. And very little left in the center. And Hancock has called for reinforcements to come up to bolster the line in the center. But he sees Wilcox's brigade attacking right here across this ground. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. Let me go ahead and zoom, go to my visit to that part of the battlefield. So here's the 1st Minnesota's monument. And this is just kind of showing you what part of that attack looked like. But behind me is the ground. And so this is where that unit is coming from. They're coming through where those trees are. There's a little creek that runs through there, and they're attacking right there. Yeah, the Pennsylvania Reserves, they were fighting down here. They were part of the 5th Corps. So here they are right here. They were fighting down in this area here. So Hancock comes along and he sees the 1st Minnesota. They're the only unit that's sitting there that hasn't been engaged and isn't falling back. And he comes along and he says, "My God, is this all the men that we have in this area?" And he orders William Colville, the colonel of the 1st Minnesota. He points to the colors of one of the regiments in Wilcox's brigade, and he orders them to take the colors. And the Minnesota men, you can see there, they're going to charge forward. Now, what people don't realize is that there was a charge also happening, and you can see that. The 111th New York and the 105th PA, down here further south, are going to move in the south. But look at that. 1st Minnesota charges into 4 regiments right there, all by themselves. And they're going to very quickly lose over 80% of their men. And there'll only be 47 of them left. And you can see here that things are getting overrun up here. 19th Maine's trying to hold on. And here come the reinforcements now. You're going to start seeing them pouring in slowly as the 1st Minnesota is holding. He moves Company I over to his right. 105th PA, 111th New York are going to come up and support. But the 1st Minnesota does just enough in that 20 minutes or so to stop Wilcox's attack, allow for these units that have shattered to start to slowly reconstitute themselves enough to put up a defense as reinforcements are going to start arriving. Here comes some Vermont men right here. And these are going to be the same men who have to throw back Pickett's charge the following day right here. Yeah, Colo, let's save it with the conspiracy theories. But yeah, heroic charge by the 1st Maine, or the 1st Minnesota. I can't believe I said Maine, sorry. Does not get nearly the press that the 20th Maine does, and that's unfortunate because it deserves it. So at that point, the Confederate attack's pretty well over on the right. You can see they're going to start falling back now. Reinforcements are going to rise up, move forward. Now, just as all of that ends on the Confederate right, now you're going to have the attack commence at Pickett's charge. Completely the wrong time. It should have happened hours earlier. But it doesn't. And here comes George Stewart. He's the one that's going to have the Maryland units there. And there will be some fighting up here as well. Late in the evening. Harry Hayes, Louisianians are going to attack right here. And there's going to be some attacking that goes on. You're going to see units start to shift in that direction. And it's late in the day when President Richard Nixon's great-grandfather is going to be mortally wounded fighting in this area with the 73rd Ohio. They're still over here right now. So it was a pretty serious attack that happens right here along this side. But if you just imagine if this attack had happened at the same time this attack was happening, it might have been a different situation. Pickett is on the 3rd. So now all the fighting shifts to the Confederate left. And you're going to have Jubal Early's men attacking. And the 25th Ohio is going to break, as is the 107th Ohio, but then they'll kind of hold. And you can see all the artillery they've got up here on Cemetery Hill. And for a while, it looks like the Confederates might break the center. Has Gettysburg changed a lot? They are working on trying to make it look more natural than as it did then, but it's very commercial compared to battlefields like Antietam or Shiloh, even Chickamauga. There's a lot of hotels, there's a lot of museums, those sorts of things. So now the Union's going to shift to 73rd Ohio. No, 73rd's still there. This is 58th New York, 119th New York are going to come over here to help slow things down. They're going to counterattack the Louisianians. But things are holding pretty well by Greene. Greene's one of the oldest generals in the Union Army at this point. Yes, this is all artillery up here. And so, by this point, 9 o'clock, you're starting to hit nightfall. And now Ramseur, Iverson, Doles, these are men that fought on July 1st. They're going to start making a push, but they don't really go that far with it. Zachariah, yes, I do remember that. And so now Hayes has been thrown back. They never got the support they needed to really be able to make anything happen. There's nothing going to happen. Culp's Hill is a really strong position. Things are solid on the Union left at this point. There's not really anything for them to worry about. So Rice is the guy that takes over for Strong Vincent in command of Vincent's brigade. And the 20th Maine at this point has been moved out up on top of Big Round Top, and that's where they'll remain until July 3rd. Yeah, they did break Cemetery Hill, not on late July 1st, early the 2nd. No, they didn't break it then. The closest they came to breaking Cemetery Hill is going to be on the late part of July 2nd. But that's as far as they get. Right here, CivilWarAnimatedBattles.com is the site. Gettysburg on this map, this is actually a modern map of Gettysburg right here. The town wasn't as big then. All of this was open country here. There weren't houses all in this area right here. This was all pretty open. The town has extended a lot since then. Here's Gettysburg High School right here, and that's obviously pretty new. A lot of hotels over in this area out here. No, the Union Army didn't get any reinforcements other than their own corps. No big reaction there, Zachary. You won fair and square. You kicked my butt. All right. Colo's in timeout. It has been touristified, yes. But still a great place to visit. So that's pretty much the end of the action on July 2nd. There's some skirmishing that's going to take place up here. And so George Nixon, who's Richard Nixon's great-grandfather, he's mortally wounded up here on Cemetery Hill. And a man named Richard Enderlin, I think is his name, who is one of his best friends, is going to crawl out on his belly to grab George Nixon and rescue him and carry him back. And Enderlin will actually be given the Medal of Honor for saving his friend, though he didn't save his life because George Nixon eventually dies of his wounds. Yeah, Nathan, I agree. I think Meade was a solid commander. He was a fantastic division commander earlier in the war. Was really the only one who saw any great success during Fredericksburg. But what could have made the Confederates win the battle on July 2nd? Nothing. They should have pulled out of Gettysburg and built a defensive position between the Union and Washington, D.C. Zachary, that's fair. All right, any other questions you guys have for me about the July 2nd battle? That's pretty well it. Tomorrow, same time, 2 o'clock, I'll do another stream. We'll talk about July 3rd. That'll mostly be Pickett's charge. My thoughts on Mahone's brigade not supporting Wright. There's a lot of that going around at this battle, of units not supporting each other the way that they should. But there was a lot of confusion, too. Yeah, Gettysburg has been restored a lot. It looks a lot different, I agree, from when I first went in the 90s, late 80s when I was there for the first time. They're trying to restore it as much as they can to its natural state, other than the monuments, of course. But we'll go ahead and wrap it up right there, and I will see you guys again tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Same thing.